In this second part on how to build chords from scratch, you're going to be focusing on learning to build chords rooted on the 5th string. You're still using the major scale, but instead of starting the scale on the 6th string, you'll be starting the scale on the 5th string because that's where the chord is rooted. Okay? So, you may know some chords already on the 5th string, like a major, a minor, or a dominant chord, and that's great. So what you can do is you can take chord plotter number 2, form one of these chords, and see what your fingers are playing. What interval is each finger playing? This way, if you want to alter the chord, you'll know where everything is if you're taking a 5 and flattening it, for example, or even raising it for a sharp 5. You'll know where your 5s are, and you'll know how to make that happen. And you'll be able to experiment a little with fingering to find the best and most comfortable way to make that happen. Okay? So, if it's a little confusing, that's okay. This stuff takes a little time to internalize and understand fully. So the best thing we can do right now is just dive right in and get going. All right, the first chord we're going to talk about is the major 7 chord. But what I want to do here is I want to lay out the major chord, which most people have learned by now, right? So you're on the 5th string, so here's your root. Let's say this is at the 3rd fret. Or no, let's make it the 5th fret. So this is a D. And then you put your 3 fingers here 2 frets higher on the 4th, 3rd, and 2nd string, and you usually mute that, right? So your major chord is right there. So you've got the 1, the 3, the 5, and you have another 1. All right? Now, you want to make a major 7 chord. So on the dictionary on the left, you scroll down just a little past 3rd, a third of the way down, and you'll see major 7. And you'll look at its spelling as 1, 3, 5, 7. So a major 7 is a major 7. You saw it on the 6th string, 1, 3, 5, 7. So on the 5th string, it's no different. It's just the fingering is going to be different because the strings are different. Okay, so you've got your major chord right here. So you see we've got A7 right here. So what we want to do is modify our fingering so that we have this shape right here. So you got your first finger here, barring all the way across this. Your 3rd finger was on here beforehand, laying down. Well, you leave your 3rd finger there, add your 2nd finger, and bring your 4th finger into play, the 3 tone. So your 2nd finger is playing 7. Okay? And that's pretty straightforward, okay? So let me demonstrate. Okay? Let's start with the familiar. When you're building chords, a lot of times you can start with what you already know. This is a big deal here. So we're going to start with just the straight C major chord. And I'm just playing the 5th, 4th, 3rd, and 2nd string because I don't really like playing this version of the major chord unless I have a real purpose behind it. So I just lay my 3rd finger across those 3 strings and bring in my 1st finger for the root. Now, you use the major scale to find everything that you need to play the chord, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we know we have a 1 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3. 3, 1, 5, 1. 1, 3, 5. You'll see if you look at the major chord spelling in the dictionary, it's 1, 3, 5. That's all we got here. A 1, a 5, another 1, and a 3. And like I said, you got a 5 there if you get it to play. All right? Now, let's look at the major 7 chord. Okay, now you see we've just moved 1 note. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. So this is the only 7 in the diagram, technically. And so you modify your fingering. Instead of playing C like this, you stand that up, bring your second finger on the 7 tone that you've just now found at the 4th fret on the 3rd string. Bring your little finger in to play the 3 tone on the 2nd string. And you can bring that 5 back in now. And that's how you arrive at a major 7 chord rooted in the 5th string. Okay? Yeah, it really is actually just about that simple. Okay? All right. Now let's look at a minor 7. Okay? Now, if you look on your dictionary and we go down just below the major 7, it says minor 7. So now you have a 1 flat 3, 5 flat 7. Same spelling as we did before when we were doing the 6th string. Remember, the spelling of a minor 7 is always the same, no matter what string you're rooted on. So from now on, we're going to assume spellings are always the same, regardless of string. Okay? So 1 flat 3, 5 flat 7. So let's look at what we got. Well, here within the diagram, we got a 1, and we got a 3 way over here, so we can flatten that. And we've got a 5, and we've got a 7, which we can also flatten. So basically, if we draw a line, 1 to 5, flat 7, flat 3, and then the 5, which is played by your first finger barring all the way across here. So your first finger is going to bar the 1, the flat 7, and the 5. Now remember, I left sharps and flats off of this diagram to keep it simple and clean. All right? So what we got here, 1 to 5, flat 7, flat 3 to 5 again. Okay? So let me demonstrate. Now, we're talking about the minor 7 chord. But first, again, I want to use what you know to help you find what you're looking for. Now, hopefully you know what the dominant 7 chord is. Let's talk a little bit about this. It's spelled 1, 3, 5, flat 7, right? So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we want to flatten the 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we've got the 1, 5, flat 7, 3, and 5. Look at your chord plotter and you'll see it's laid out just like that. Okay? Now, what we want to do is we want to find the minor 7. All right? So what we've done is we've taken our 3 over here, right? And you know this is the 1 because it's the octave 1, 2, 3. You flatten the 3, 1 fret lower, and put, so basically you're just lifting your little finger off the 3 and putting your second finger on the flat 3, and you have a minor 7. Now the minor 7, when you look at the dictionary, is 1 flat 3, 5 flat 7. 1 flat 3, 5, another 5 up there, flat 7. And you arrived at that using the major scale, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, which we flattened. 1, 2, 3, which we've also flattened. So we took the 3 and the 7, or excuse me, and the 7, and we flattened them, right? And then we add the 1 and the 5. And there's your minor 7. Now remember, there's no open strings, so it moves up. So 2 frets higher is a D minor 7. 2 frets higher, E minor 7. All rooted on the 5th string, C, D, E. All right? Pretty cool, huh? The chord I want to teach you now and have you play is a dominant 9 chord. Now, in the dictionary on the left-hand column, third up from the bottom, you'll see the spelling of the dominant 9. 1, 3, 5, flat 7, 9. Notice the first 4 notes of the dominant 9 are actually the notes that are contained in the dominant 7 chord. What you're doing here is just adding the 9 tone on top of, or in addition to, the dominant 7 chord. Okay? So let's look at the chord plotter here. We got a 1, and we got a 3, and we got a 5, and we got a flat in that 7, and we got a 9 and a 5 here too. We also have a 9 here, as a matter of fact. Now, one thing I want you to notice, and this is what you have to pay attention to when you're looking at how to put chords together, is where everything sits on the fretboard. You flatten this 7. It's the only really viable 7 we've got in the whole diagram, right? So you've got it right there. But you'll notice you got a 9 and a 5 right next door, so all on the same fret. And additionally, the 1 is also on the same fret. Interestingly, you've got a 3 right here, so you could play this shape right here and have everything you need. The 1, the 3, the 5, the flat 7, and the 9. And that would be exactly right. This is the dominant 9 voicing you want to play. It's the easy one that most guitar players learn very early on. So you got a 1, 3, flat 7, 9, and 5. Okay? Let me show you. All right, the 9 chord is just a little bit different than what you're used to. And I'll show you a what you know element at the end of this explanation. Right now, let's just go through and find out how we find all the notes for a typical dominant 9 chord. Well, okay, first we have to know the spelling. So in the dictionary, we look at the spelling. It's 1, 3, 5, flat 7, and 9. Now you notice the 1, 3, 5, and flat 7, those define a dominant 7 chord. So now we're just adding the 9 on top of it. Chords above the 7 are additive. You just keep adding the 9, 11, and 13, and you create 9s, 11s, and 13s. All right, so you got the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and we want the flat 7, 8 to find 9, back to 3, 4, 5. So what we have here is a 1, 3, flat 7, 9, and 5. All the notes of the dominant 7 are there. 1, 3, 5, flat 7, and the 9 now is added to create a dominant 9. And you play it just like that. Put your third finger across the top 3 strings, hump over to the 5th string, and then play the 4th string with your first finger. Whoops. Okay? And that's pretty straightforward. Now, if you know the G minor 6, you see the shape is virtually the same, except here's your root over here on the 6th string, and it's a G minor 6. You just take this and move it over 1, you've got C9, because the relationship of these other notes changes because the root has changed from a G to a C. So this is no longer a 6, it's a 3, and subsequently these are no longer what they were. They're now something else because of their relationship to the root. Okay? And that's the what you may already know. A minor 6 on the rooted on the 6th string. Just move your second finger over, and you have a dominant 9 when it's rooted on the 5th string. The rest of the chord stays exactly the same. Okay? All right, let's have a little bit of fun here. I'm going to have you learn to play a rootless chord, or at least a rootless version of this chord. The chord I'm talking about is a dominant 7 flat 9, or more simply put, 7 flat 9. Now, in the dictionary, on the right-hand column, 6 up from the bottom, you'll see the 7 parenthesis flat 9 end parenthesis, and then you'll see the spelling 1, 3, 5 flat 7 flat 9. So you'll notice right away we have a 1, 3, 5 flat 7. Ah, that's a dominant 7 chord. Exactly right. And then the addition of a flat 9. So first, let's look at how the 7 chord is played. You probably already know this, so it'll be a real quick little review. Well, okay, we got the 1, and we got a 3, we got a 5, and if we take this 7 and flatten it, we got it right there, and then we got another 5. So your first finger is barred across this fret, playing the 1, flat 7, and 5, and then you've got your 3 and your 5. So you see your flat 7 chord right here. Okay? Now, we want to add a flat 9. Because we're playing this 3 here, this 9 is out of the question. So where's another 9? Well, right here, on the same string as the root. But we want to make it a flat 9. So flatten it a half step, 1 fret. Now, your first finger's playing this, this, and this. Your fourth finger's playing this. Your third finger's playing this. That leaves your second finger open to being employed. So we're dropping the 9 and flattening it. And that's where your second finger goes. And you'll notice it's obscuring the root. So this chord has no root. All right? Let me demonstrate. All right, what we got here, I'm showing you a C7. This is what you know. So we're going to take what you know to find what you're looking for. A few minutes ago, we outlined the C7 chord. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Flatten that 7 for the 7 tone, flat 7 of the dominant 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you got the 1, 5, flat 7, 3, 5. Bar across these notes, play those. Okay, pretty straightforward. That's a C7. But now what we want is a 7 flat 9. So what we have to do is find the flat 9, right? So 1, 2. Well, 2 is also a 9. As we know, we have a 9 here because the D tone is the 9 because you had the 1, 2, okay, from the dominant 9. But we're playing a C7. And the 9 tone is right here, the 5th fret on the 5th string. So now we want a flat 9, which means you move it from here to here. Let me show you. Just like that. Now, you play this with your second finger, and you just keep the 7 chord shape, and then, because that's what you're familiar with, your muscle memory will play that, and you just add your second finger on the flat 9. And there it is, C7, flat 9. Now, you'll notice this is a rootless chord. There's no root, no open circle here, right? All right, let's take a look at that and break it down. Okay, there you see the flat 9. We called that out, right? 1, 2, or 9, flat 9. So there it is. Now you'll see the gray circle right behind the flat 9. That's where the root is, but it's obscured by the flat 9, and subsequently it's a rootless chord because we can't play this root here because we need the flat 7, right? That's why this is called a rootless chord, because there is no root. It's still technically a C7. We're adding a flat 9 and just removing the root. Now again, because there's no open strings, you can move this up. Okay, if this was the root D, and that's the flat 9, we're playing a 7 with a flat 9. And if we moved it up 2 more, E, E7, add the flat 9, it's an E7 flat 9. Okay, pretty straightforward. So you're going to run into rootless chords from time to time, and this is what it's about. So a kind of a general rule about any chord that has a flat 9 in it, the flat 9, more often than not, is going to obscure the root, meaning it's on the same string, 1 fret higher, so you know where the root is, because if you know where your flat 9 is, 1 fret back is the root. So it's a C7 with a flat 9, even though we're rootless. But you know where to play it because this is C, and it's a C7 flat 9, just as if it was a D7 with a flat 9. There's your D, and there's your flat 9, a fret higher on the same string, D, and so forth, right? Because there's no open strings to make this anything other than what it is. All right? There you go. Okay, there you go. Chord plotter number 2, 5th string rooted chords. You're getting an introduction to it here. Now remember too that you have the last 2 pages of the downloaded material, the written material. On the first of those last 2 pages are the 6th and 5th string rooted chords. Look at the 5th string rooted chords. Use chord plotter number 2 to figure out why is that a minor 7? Why is that a diminished chord, etc. Right? So that you're able to look at what you're playing, how it's spelled, and what each of your fingers is playing of the spelling of that chord. Now, a really cool thing here also is that chords you play but don't know the names of, you can actually backward engineer them, right? By figuring out which note is the root, and then looking at the intervals that you're playing. What are your fingers actually playing? Using the chord plotter, whether it's on the 6th, 5th, or 4th string, and trying to understand, okay, well, this is the root, say it's on the 5th string, and then I've got all these fingers playing all these different notes. What are the exact intervals that my fingers are playing? Then you write them down, and then you look on the chord plotter to see which chord spelling best reflects what you're playing. Then you'll learn the name of the chord. Oh, that's a 13 flat 9, for example, right? And that's the cool thing about this. Chords that you can play but don't know the names of, now you can figure out what they are. All right? This further adds to your knowledge and understanding of just exactly what you're playing. Okay? All right, that'll do for this one. One more part to go, and we'll see you there. Hey, thanks for watching. If you press the little red button down there in the corner, you'll be subscribed to Outsmart Your Guitar. If you then hit the notification bell, you'll be informed when we upload new material, which is usually around once a week. Below the video in the description, you will see a link that will take you to where you can download a PDF of the lesson material that accompanies this video. All lessons contain a link to give you access to the written material for that lesson. Below that, you will see a link to Patreon Outsmart Your Guitar, where I have a lot of material that isn't included here. So you may want to check that out. There's 2 levels of subscription. I'd really appreciate if you would become a patron by subscribing at one of the 2 levels and help support my efforts to continue to provide high quality lesson material for you, to help you learn, play, and grow to become the guitar player you desire to be. All right, thanks very much for your time. I really appreciate it. And hey, we'll see you soon.